Okay, recording has started. So welcome everyone to the June 2025 Microsoft 365 Modern Management Meetup. So I guess this is where, for anyone who came from an accounting background in Australia, we say Happy New Financial Year.
End of financial year.
End of financial year.
So the new financial year,
not just yet. And I guess also Mike, and getting close to the end of the Microsoft financial year. So I think this is actually the first time that the four hosts have all been on a call in a long time.
Yes. Yeah.
So when I was going through and updating the slides, I had to unscratch everyone's names, and I was thinking, it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
So just a quick intro on my side for anyone who's new. My name's Mark O'Shea. You can find me on X at InTunedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, which I'm being forced to use a bit more these days. People are sending me messages on LinkedIn, so I have to go and use them. But otherwise, I guess if everyone else just wants to do a quick intro.
Go down the list.
Yeah, go down the list. So over to you, Aresh.
My name is Aresh. I'm an architect at Dell Technologies and a regular member of this particular group. So hopefully people should know me by now. That's me. Yeah. Thank you.
My name is Stephen, and I'm oh no, it's not that meeting. So I work for Windows. Well, I work for Microsoft in the Windows team. What exactly that is to be determined. So yeah, I know stuff about Windows and Intune.
Cool.
I know stuff about group policy. I know how to get off it. Sorry, Jeroen.
That doesn't matter. My name is Jeroen. I'm from the Netherlands. It's, how late is it? 9:43 in the morning. So good morning. Microsoft Intune MVP knows a lot about Intune, I think. Doing a lot of community work, and Mark, just like Mark said, it's a long time ago that we are all here again.
Yeah. Okay, so just a quick agenda for today. Just if there is anyone new who's joined us, we'll sort of ask you to do a quick intro if you feel like it. We'll get Jeroen to jump in once we get into the events section, because he'll give us a bit of a summary of the Workplace Ninjas event that he was just at. And then after that, we jump into into Aresh's session, giving us an update on what's new and improved and shiny in Win365 and AVD. And then, as per usual, we'll stop recording after that so we can go into just any general discussions that maybe they're topics that, maybe they're sensitive, maybe they're things that you don't really want them being recorded. So if you do have anything that you want to ask, but you don't want there to be any evidence of it on the internet, keep it until that general discussion piece. Let's just hit mute. Okay, so I think I just saw, so Niraj just sort of jumped in. Okay, yeah, no problem. So welcome, Niraj, welcome. And I think you're saying we've got an Andy in here as well. So welcome, and I guess that just means we can sort of go through, just the intro slide quickly.
And we have Dom in the room.
Yeah, oh yeah, we have a Dom.
Hello, I'm Dom. I'm from Telstra. I know nothing about Intune or Windows or group policy or network authentication or anything.
But you know about the 5G because you work for Telstra.
You mean that evil thing that gives you COVID?
Yuck. My shoulder's hurt ever since I got that 5G injection.
We are being recorded. Yeah. Remember that voice.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess just first cab off the rank when it comes to events. So Jeroen, you mentioned that you have just been at an international Workplace Ninjas event.
No. It was Experts Live.
Experts Live.
Oh, Experts Live. Oh,
Experts sorry. Live Netherlands. Yeah.
So you didn't have to travel for that one? Well,
By
not very
car.
far. Yeah.
Not that far.
See, but that
again.
could still, but for you, that could still mean going into another country.
Yep.
We'd have to have like a
Yeah.
James Bond car to
It
go
was
to
a
drive
30
to another
minutes drive
country.
for me.
Yep.
Now, we had at the 3rd of June, so last week, we had Express Live Netherlands for 1 day. Last time in Australia and Sydney, it was 2 days. But we had about 2,000 plus attendees from the
So
Netherlands, from Belgium, doesn't matter.
Okay, so just the first question I've got. So were the sessions, what language were they delivered in?
Dutch and English,
Okay,
because we had also international speakers like
Yeah.
from Sweden and Norway,
And Australia.
Australia, no. England, we had also speakers from England.
Sarah?
So yeah, we had,
Sarah Young.
Yeah, she was
Okay.
over there.
yeah, Sarah Young was the keynote speaker.
As I said,
Uh,
Australian. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Australian,
Sorry.
and she gives out dog stickers of her
Yep.
dogs.
Yeah, I didn't see
which-
that one.
Yeah, she's got, or at least she had. It's been a few years, but she had Shibas and some other kind of Japanese dog that's bigger than a Shiba, but that's not tough
Yes.
because Shibas are kind of mystery dogs. You see them in photos, and you don't realize how small they are.
Yeah.
So then in terms of
And the
yeah, so in terms of just your take on it, what were the sessions that people like really attended the most, etc., or enjoyed the most? Were there any that stood out for you?
now, yeah, good question. Because I'm a member of the crew of Express Live Netherlands, I didn't see any session, but I gave one.
Yeah.
The early shift.
And what was the feedback like on your session? Any comments you want to share? After you translate them into English.
Yeah, I did it in English because I submitted as English session, so I couldn't change the language. Yeah. But I did it with a co-speaker, and we talked about cloud PKI and certificate-based authentication. So we had a room for 250 people, but I think it was filled up for the half, I think,
Oh, okay.
for 7:45 in the morning. So that was a good session.
So they
we had
wanted to be there.
Yeah, they needed to be there. But the feedback was good. Nobody was using Cloud PKI or CBA before they entered the room. So hopefully now they are playing with it. I don't know. But it was good feedback. So my session went well, luckily.
Excellent.
Me. Yeah.
Okay, so
Furthermore,
in terms of other events that are coming up, I'm sure we'll start getting some more that start plugging into here. But for now, I guess the next major one is Ignite, and that's not until mid-November in San Francisco. So
Watch this
good
space.
luck on many fronts
Yeah.
attending that event. Now I've got to remember to delete that part in case next time I go through customs, they pull it up and say, now I've just made it worse. Yeah, so that one is, it'll be, for me, the thing that I'm curious about with that one is just like how far and wide spread the sessions will be, because it's been ages since I've been to the Moscone Center. So but it just wasn't that huge a convention center back then. So I'm guessing they've got one of those deals, kind of like what happens even in Orlando, where you end up with a bunch of the ballrooms and things at a lot of the hotels immediately around it booked out. So there will be outdoor time, but it will be a sanitized version of the outdoors that you get there. That can pretty much be a guarantee. You can read into that whatever you you need to feel comfortable. Okay, so yeah, but otherwise, like there'll be people who sort of complain that it's, the location that it's in, it's still going to sell out. Yeah. For every person who complains about the location, there'll be someone else going, fantastic, I live on the West Coast.
Yeah.
This is much easier to get approval. It's in my time zone, etc.
Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty much the last of the slides I've got. So from here, I'm going to hand over to Aresh to talk about his 365 things you didn't know about Windows 365.
And let me bring up my 365 slides.
Slides? Oh, excellent. I want to see that.
Brilliant.
Just give me a second.
Just going into
Just thinking, we should nominate it as a joke submission for some event in the future and see if it gets accepted.
Oh, it would.
Okay, let me know if you're able to see the slides. And I hope it's moving as well.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
awesome. So let's kick it off. What I'm going to do is, with the amount of people that we have, I'll try to breeze through them quickly. And then if there is special interest on any topic, I think we can dig down on those particular topics rather than just general updates. So I've done the intro, so let's just kick it off with the agenda directly. Our objective is to look into updates of Windows 365 in the last 3 months, because I think we've almost done a session prior to that. So that's why I've kept it only for the last 3 months. And then we'll look into the updates in Azure Virtual Desktop for the last 3 months. And then we'll take any questions. I'll also will ask the limited audience about the feature usage and things to just general figure out whether enterprises are using these features, yes, no, and just to get a general sentiment. So I'll try and ask those kind of questions. So let's kick it off with the first brand new compression algorithm which we have in Windows 365 is H.265. Now, we always had H.264 into the equation. However, with the new GPUs, I think the new NVIDIA and AMD series, mainly NVIDIA is what I can see, there is now availability of this particular compression. So if you had Max and Super, and that's the key highlight, that you can't make use of this compression technique in the standard SKU, and standard SKU doesn't have that GPU. I think it is a different GPU altogether, but the Max and the Super are using NVIDIA based GPUs. So if you had a GPU SKU and you wanted to use the compression, you could probably enable it on the Super and Max. From memory, I think the Super and Max are roughly 8 GB VRAM, and I think the Super is 16. So 16 is the top of the line in terms of VRAM. I don't think having 16 GB is considered as bad. I would consider that system as a great system for graphic designing and stuff, which is exactly what the SKU is for. There is no official statement whether you can do AI-based localized AI on that desktop, but I guess nobody's stopping you when you have 16 GB of VRAM. Just for context purposes, on my home system, I do run 16 GB VRAM, and probably I can run most of the quantized models. So you could do the same thing on this Windows 365 SKU, which is Super. And just for comparison, what is the difference between H264 and H265 is that the compression is 30 to 50 times better from between the H264 versus H265. However, as it is better, it slightly needs more compute as well. And that's why it's only available on the newer series and not on the standard. It's specifically for that reason that the Super and the Max SKUs have better graphic cards and better hardware, newer hardware. Hence, it can do that particular compression. That's more or less about it. Wanted to ask the audience, anyone using the GPU instance of Windows 365?
No, no.
Hey,
No.
lovely.
No,
I see.
they haven't given me one yet.
Yeah, same here. I've requested it multiple times, but have always been declined because of the costing implication, which is quite obvious. As I told you,
I do have 2 dev boxes.
You have?
2 dev box.
You have 2 dev boxes?
Yeah.
Wow. Do they come with the GPUs?
No, I don't think so.
I see.
Maybe. Let me see.
That's a pretty weak, humble brag.
I know. But
So,
I think,
I was just, sorry,
yeah.
I was just having a look at the, like, when certain like CPUs and GPUs started to incorporate H.265 support, and like some of the ARM chips started supporting it pretty, really early on. But yeah, I guess like the thing that I sort of haven't looked at too closely though is that, are they just, I'm guessing a lot of those early implementations would have just been decode, not encode. So the encoding side of it, I'm guessing that's what's going to really shrink the pull down of devices that can actually support this properly.
It is. I think very valid point. In fact, it has a lot of long laundry lists of clients that don't support it as well. Forget whether it can be done. And you're right that I feel there is a long laundry list that I don't even know whether most of the client, I think the Windows 365 link would be able to support it, but not sure if other client devices would have been in the capacity for a support as well on the client side.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm guessing it would have had to have been a pretty high feature requirement on the CPU in the link. Like shipping it without that, knowing that this was coming, would have that's one of those things where, sometimes those kind of disconnects happen, but this seems like too small a team for that kind, and it's a team, hopefully, or actually that's not something, no concern about there being any kind of mismatch in that case.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, the next feature is Windows 365 Frontline dedicated mode concurrency. So basically now you have a report where, before I go with the Frontline, does everyone know about the Frontline license type of Windows 365?
Yes.
That's great. So now we have 2 types of Frontline. One is dedicated and one is shared. And dedicated is the one which came in earlier, the original Frontline desktop. And shared is the latest into the family with what it means exactly. It's a shared license. So now we have a report where you could see the concurrent and warning about the concurrent, and this can be set up as alerts as well. No worries. So we only so we have this particular concurrent dashboard, which can now tell you whether how many desktops you have and are you reaching the warning limit. And this would essentially give you a single snapshot alert to your admin teams that you are reaching the license. Because remember, what happens when you reach the buffer is no one else can get a desktop. And that's where the having the right count and the right buffer for this license is extremely important. And now it's just that you have it in the dashboard as well, which earlier it was not in the dashboard. And now you have a dedicated dashboard with a warning and alerting setup for this. So if anyone using Frontline in the enterprise,
Hopefully in the near future.
that's pretty cool. Because I've mainly seen enterprises just using regular 365. I've not seen people making use of this Frontline license yet, but glad to know. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, because I'm actually kind of curious, and it's not something we'd probably get an answer to, but if you think about how they normally talk about Frontline being used in call center, like they use kind of call centers with shift, people coming in doing different shifts being the target. Like I'm kind of curious if there's like major differences in adoption in different parts of the world based on the density of call centers that they've got. But then I'm also thinking of some of those places where they would have the higher density are also the places that would not want to be paying for things.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to be a little bit subtle, but it's hard to be.
Yeah.
And what about those use cases where the call center itself is an AI agent?
Yeah.
No more calling altogether. So that's about the dedicated mode concurrency management. So it's now generally available. It was under preview until the June release. So now it's become GA. Moving on, Teams VDI optimization now on the iOS is in preview. Note this is different, as in Teams optimization is right now in the 2.0 version, which is like the latest and the greatest optimizations of Teams for Windows 365 or gallery-based images in the store. However, the iOS and the Mac OS versions are still under preview. So if you were using these optimizations on a Windows devices, they would work full-fledged. However, if you were trying to use it on iOS and Mac OS, it's not the latest and the greatest which is supported. But now you have the V1 version or the 1.0 version of optimizations for Teams available on iOS. So it's slowly catching up. Again, how many of you use the desktop on a phone? Anyone?
Sometimes.
Yeah. I agree with that sometimes thing. But is it the desktop or the app?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've done the desktop.
Yeah. I recently did the desktop too. It was real emergency, like, just had to do something. That's about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I guess it doesn't like, there's isn't this a cool demo? But then when you're turning it into, like, it's not something you choose to use most of the time, but they're even going back to the, just using the old RDP clients, etc. Sometimes all you just need it to see something.
Yeah.
You've never managed a server via RDP if you didn't do it via a Windows phone with a stylus. Having to frantically scroll. No, I didn't want to select there. Scroll. Yes, there.
Indeed,
it's
very
kind
well
of,
said.
yeah, and as much as, yeah, it's kind of interesting because I guess if we were given screens the size that our phones have got today, I wonder if we would have been like just going, this is absolutely amazing. It's completely usable because it was so much better than what we had.
Yeah.
We would have put it on a pedestal.
Oh, 100%.
I agree. That it reminds me of those stylus days. I did had a HTC phone, by the way.
Oh, yes, so do I.
Yeah.
So I've still got a box full of, and I do mean a box full of Windows phones that, Brett Gilbertson, that
The collector.
I keep threatening to ship them to him, but I don't want to ship a box full of phones that have probably got batteries that are ready that are bulging.
Yeah, you ship it just without your name.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So for those about who don't know about the team optimization, basically, if you use the gallery Microsoft image, the Teams is optimized for you. You literally don't have to do anything. So when you create the Windows 365 provisioning policy, and if you selected 24H2 with Microsoft Office suite on it, basically that will carry all the team optimizations in that image. You don't have to do anything. And similar in the Azure Virtual Desktop front as well. If you use the Windows, whatever, multi-session or gallery image from Microsoft, you don't have to do the team optimization. It is done for you. However, if you're not using those images, and if at all you have to do it yourself, there's a extensive step-by-step guide with lots of steps, lots of work to be done that one can perform onto the images. So if you are interested, leave a message on the chat. I'll probably give you the link, but that's like the manual way of doing it. But rest assured, I rather point you to the gallery images because all the optimizations are done for you. Okay, moving on. The Cloud PC report utilization has a new option of some aggregated times. So earlier, this particular option was not existing. It would only give you last 24 hours or some. I don't exactly remember as in how much back of a report it would give you. However, in the new updates, it is able to give you up to 90 days. So it gives you an aggregated time. Now you have a option to see who's not even connected. So let's say if you selected none as the first option, it could even tell you who is not connected to your Windows 365 desktop ever. So that means like a wasted license assigned for that particular user. So you can see all of those particular options, as well as now go back and see who's using it low, average, high from a time connected perspective and gather reports. It's now inside the utilization report itself under home devices, reports, and cloud PC overview, if you selected that. But to do the filtering where you could put these new 20, 40, and 80 hours kind of options, you probably have to select these options and then it will filter out the report for you. So depending on what you selected, it will filter out and give you, and then you probably can export the data from that particular report. So this is net new. And it's now available in the utilization report. And I'm assuming most of you must be using the utilization report. Is that like a fair assumption?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay, no worries. But so people who would use this in the future, heads up, this is like a real instrumental report that you probably would use day in, day out. If you had a large environment, this is like a single point solution where if you wanted to see how many are used, how many are not used, how many are ideal, whether you've over provisioned, under provisioned, stuff like that. This is your one-stop shop where this report can tell you all the great intelligence. Okay, next feature. So now there is a Cloud PC status report for batch reports. So let's say what I have on a screenshot is earlier in my tenant, what I did is I have these 6 Windows 365 PCs. I created a batch action to restart all 6 of them. So back in the day, if you did that, then you literally had no way to visually see the status of how much progress was happening on that batch request. But now what you have is in the reports for Cloud PC Actions, this is a previewed feature right now. There's an option called as bulk batches. In that bulk batches, whatever action you have, whatever bulk action you've triggered, you will be able to see this. Because of resolution and issues, I've just condensed that screenshot. However, after the restart, there is a progress option where, let's say in my case, there were 6 cloud pieces. It was saying 0/6 were in progress. So it was telling me all along the way how many had completed and how many were pending in this particular report. So now there's a neat way to see the bulk actions. Now, this is applicable for all the available cloud bulk cloud PC bulk actions that you can take right now. So it's a great way to see progress. Tying this to a use case, recently we had a very big vendor where there were some issues caused by the updates to the Windows devices. And a lot of people had to perform restore or bulk restore or bulk revert or revert to a previous known state actions. So those kind of actions back in the day, it was like you executed, but you never knew the status of them. But now you have a visual way of knowing the status of a big environment on how much is progress and how much is pending in the UI through a report. Same, you can export the results out as well. Moving on. There's deprecation of Windows 365, Windows 365.microsoft.com, and it's been replaced by the Windows app completely. So if any of you were in a habit of going to Windows 365.microsoft.com, stop doing that. It's still going to be available for the government, but the proposal for every enterprise in general is that it's getting deprecated as of June 1st. My observation even today, like while I was creating and getting the screenshots, it is still in working and in action. However, there's a subtle document change where within the Windows app, where it mentions that if you were to use the web browser, you need to go to windows.cloud.microsoft. So that's what they are pointing people to as far as a web usage of the Windows 365 Cloud PC goes. But as I said, in the browser at the moment, still it is doing Windows 365.microsoft.com only. But the declaration is done that it's getting deprecated. So point all your users, if at all they were doing it through the browser. I like browser has always been the backup option, not the primary option, because it's Windows app is a feature-rich option. Browser option has few capabilities less, but it's still available in the browser. But the use case is now go to windows.cloud.microsoft instead of Windows 365.microsoft.com. Anyone uses browser-based desktop as primary or just during intermittent access or intermittent emergencies or casual something short?
For us, it was just more of a Docker update, really.
Cool. Yep. Awesome. Yeah, that's what. So prime. It's just rare. It's not the primary way of using it. That's cool. Not as much. Moving on. This is this is a bummer. Looks like the let me put it across in a different way. I don't think this is anything to do with Windows 365 in general, but this is something to do with the Azure storage account and some new ruling around some guidance from SEC for.
We're going back to SBS, Mark. What's that? Oh, good. Yeah. But at least worm still means worm. True. Yes.
Still means worm. Yeah. So essentially, this is in a nutshell, this is your, when you put a Windows 365 in a review as in some, let's say you are a bank and you have a retention requirement and your retention period is, let's say, 5 years. Okay. Hypothetically. So what used to happen is, though you have a retention in place, someone with powerful privileges in Azure could delete your Azure storage account. And essentially what that would bring to the table is deletion of the cloud PC under review as well. So what new guidance from SEC, the rule is called 17A4, but trust me, most of the, I would say, most of the big fives are pushing customers based on this new guidance for putting a lock on the retention period. And essentially, this is no different where there is within the Azure storage account, you have to enable a lock, a policy lock, which avoids deleting of this cloud PC. And even someone with the superpower, when if by mistake they try to delete the storage account, because of this lock, it will keep the cloud PC files, which is nothing but a VHD, as is for review for future from a retention perspective. However, what I wanted to highlight is, as why I said my earlier statement is nothing mainly to do with Windows 365, but it is in general, wherever there is retention requirements, the big fives from an audit and a compliance perspective is now pushing this particular new rule where additional policy lock needs to be implemented onto the storage so that you can't delete something which needs retention requirements. Any questions on this? It's a bummer one. I'm not sure what ruling it's part of, and I'm not even 100% sure whether that ruling SEC is US, if I'm not mistaken, Steve.
Correct.
So this is more of a US-based law. Not sure if Australian Computer Science Association has like implemented this, or it
So
will.
it's no different to things like SOC compliance or anything like that, where, look, does it apply to Australia? No, but it's going to apply because people want to work with the US. It's the same thing as some of the EU laws.
Right.
Like GDPR.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Thank you. Moving on, resizing Windows 365 cloud PC. So earlier, there was no way, or this feature is brand new in the April updates. Before the April updates, you could not resize your frontline worker cloud PCs. Okay. Your regular cloud PCs, you could always resize. That has been also an option in the bulk actions, So you can even bulk resize if you were to do it like for 500 users, you could bulk resize those kind of regular Windows 365 cloud PCs. However, with the frontline ones could not be resized, but a new feature has been added where you need to go into your existing cloud provisioning policy, select the cloud provisioning policy, go into assignments, hit edit. And if you had the license, now in my case, I just have one type of frontline license, hence I don't get another choice like an 4 CPU version, 4 CPU 8 gigs version of frontline. But if I had an additional license, it would have shown up here and I could have selected that SKU and click next, and it would go and change or re-provision the frontline PCs with the upgraded SKU. So now you could do this action as well for the entire frontline worker provisioning policy. And in essential, that this means you can change all the cloud PCs provisioning of existing as well as brand new for the future. Because if you did it on the provisioning policy, that would take into effect all the cloud PCs. So it will go ahead and re-provisioning the new SKU for you in the backend once you complete the operation. This is net new, but this is great for people who've bought a entry-level frontline SKU and now want to move on to the mid-tier or the higher tier SKU of frontline worker. So provided you have the license, now you can do this option in the UI. It's not in the previous slide, it's not designated mode, it's dedicated mode basically. And I think there's a typo on the release notes, but I wanted to match the wording. Moving on, we are moving into Azure Virtual Desktop and its updates. Now that covers all the updates of Windows 365. We'll take all the questions towards the end. Now let's take a look into the last 3 months of updates into the Azure Virtual Desktop space. Similar update, H265 hardware acceleration support is added into Azure Virtual Desktop. However, note what is different is there is only particular series of VMs where it is supported. So the difference between Windows 365 is Super and Max, which supports this particular new codec compression algorithm. Now, with respect to Azure Virtual Desktop, it's only available in these 4 series of VMs. Only if you select the machine size from these 4 VMs, you'll be able to do H265. But you can see more or less the Super and the Max that we have in Windows 365 in the backend. It's actually a Azure VM t-shirt size only. So watch out for that. Only anyone using GPU-based VMs in Azure Virtual Desktop?
Not that I'm aware of.
Couldn't hear, sorry.
Not that I'm aware of.
I say. This is another use case that I wanted to throw on this one is, especially when it comes to Azure Virtual Desktop, is what you could literally do is a published app on a AVD. So let's say you probably had a CAD application and you did not have a requirement of offering CAD to like a desktop with CAD to like 25 people. What you could literally do is host the CAD on a Windows 11 multi-session VM and pick one of these SKUs and just do a published app of CAD without the desktop to those 25 users. The reason why I said 25 is there is a licensing limit for NVIDIA Grid when it comes to the ratio of users per VM. Hence, the 25 concurrent sessions is a limit per VM that you can have, and obviously that's a limit where your t-shirt size has to match as well the resource requirement. So it's not necessary that you can even have 25 users on that VM in all cases. But this is just like a primer that in Azure Virtual Desktop, this even makes more sense because you could do published applications. Moving on, this is pretty cool. I think this did existed a while back, but now it's got GA with the May 2025 updates. Is you could create a shortcut to launch the resource directly. And what I mean by that is, let's say if you had a app or a Azure Virtual Desktop, you need to find out only the workspace ID and the resource ID of that particular resource. And there are command line, you can use the PowerShell to just get both those values. Come back, create a new shortcut on your desktop, put those two values of whatever you desired. And by double clicking that particular shortcut, you could launch that Azure Virtual Desktop resource remotely. So this is useful where you just want to provide direct link to a specific resource. So you don't want people to go through the app login and all of those kind of things first, and you just want a direct shortcut. You could make use of it. Now, something to note, even in this URL, it's still pointing to Windows 365. So I'm guessing in the upcoming releases, this might get changed. Or this might be something that Microsoft might use in the backend, and they're just telling enterprises to stop using it and focus on that windows.cloud.microsoft as the URL, versus their current redirection. Even as I told you, even today, I could see this in the browser as a URL only. So this is pretty cool. Think about you could put a lot of shortcuts into people's profile, which could launch their apps directly in Azure Virtual Desktop. So the use case would be, imagine publishing a shortcut onto the user's desktop, which would launch CAD or which would launch Word or Excel or PowerPoint, something like that in Azure Virtual Desktop as shortcuts. So that's probably the use case of this particular feature. Multiple desktops. This was a much needed feature which people used to ask on a personal desktop SKU. What is a personal desktop SKU? Is nothing but before Windows 365 came in, which gives you a personal desktop. In Azure Virtual Desktop, when you had to give one-to-one desktop, it's called as a personal desktop. However, there was a very big limitation over there. That is, you could only assign one desktop to the one user. And let's say if you wanted to assign a different personal desktop to a user, you couldn't do that. Now, with this new option inside the host pool creation UI, what you could do is you can tick the assignment type direct. Remember, direct, that's the key. If at all you wanted to do multiple personal desktops, you have to select direct as the assignment type and then check the box of assign multiple desktops to a single user. And if once you check this, in the next screens, then you have the ability to assign multiple desktops to the user. Else, previously or prior to this option, you could not. You literally had to create a different host pool and a different desktop and different everything for the users. But this is a much a feature much demanded in enterprises, but it's now finally coming. But remember, this feature now does not shine that much because of Windows 365, because Windows 365 has always been like giving a personal desktop. So most of the enterprises, the way they pitch the options is use AVD for apps. And if you wanted a desktop, use Windows 365 because it can be totally managed by Intune like a regular desktop. So this feature, as much as now it has come into reality, I somehow still sense that it is done mainly for some Windows 365 future feature that might be coming in. Moving on, Windows app for on Android is now generally available. This is my Windows app that I had on my Android phone before April was, Sharon, see you. Before April, it was in preview. Now it's got GA. So if you were to access your Windows 365 resources, apps, or desktops, or even remote desktops, the Windows app is now generally available. How many of you have the Windows app on the phone?
Sometimes. Yeah.
It's a pretty cool interface app. And in fact, I use it seamlessly for RDP into my server whenever I forget shutting down the server. Rather than, I don't want to press the power button. So I go into the Windows app, and because now you can also do personal devices RDP using that app, because most likely in the future, that's going to be the de facto app, and they might just get away or get rid of the remote desktop app of the future. So that's gone GA. And there's one more, there's a couple of more features. There's conditional access policy. I wanted to show you this. However, because of my licenses and some issues that I have in my tenant, I'm unable to see you, but show you. But what this particular feature is that, let's say if you had a session and it got expired and you wanted to relaunch, it would re-authenticate you before giving you the session. And this is so now the sign-in frequency can be configured depending on your policy. Now this is done through conditional access policies. So depending on your requirement, let's say you want it every 4 hours or 8 hours, you could go and select the sign-in frequency and have users re-authenticate for a fresh token. Remember, this is for a new token. Once you're in, it might not prompt for the token for that session. It's only when you do a refresh in the Windows app, that's when it will get expired in the backend and then ask you to re-authenticate, where it grabs a fresh token and adheres to your sign-in policy. Any questions on this one? Any one of you have configured this in your enterprise as the frequency for signing in?
Not that I'm aware of.
Nice. I think this is new. Most likely I see other solutions from back in the day from my memory had 8-hour tokens. So literally there used to be like, if someone wanted 12 hours, I remember working on such use cases where someone needed 14 hours, not 8 hours, because they were running some script reports which they didn't want to re-authenticate at that point in time. So I remember from memory that this definitely will come in handy for those kind of use cases where they wanted extended periods. And last slide is around in the conditional access, there is a protection of your token. Now, this is pretty cool because this actually is for prevention of your token hacks. which is from a security standpoint, it's becoming common, hacking and stealing of your token, and then using that token to do something nasty. However, within the within the conditional access policy, there is a box now where require token protection for sign-in session. It's in preview at this point in time, but if you enable that into your conditional access policy, and it works in conjunction with a Windows app and on a Windows device with Azure Virtual Desktop. So this way, nobody can abuse that token on the device and make use of that token for that predefined period to do anything else on the Windows box. And it works in conjunction with the Windows app. So it's pretty solid. It's a good security protection for securing the token. That's from the April, and I believe that's all the content I had to cover. Opening it up for questions.
Yeah, I've
or
got one for you.
anything detailed. Yep.
Yeah, don't worry, it'll be an easy one, hopefully.
Hopefully.
So when you're currently talking to customers, and let's say you're going in and you know that they need some kind of Microsoft-based VDI solution, are you finding that, like, just in terms of the awareness of Win365 versus AVD, if they are aware of those, are you finding now that Win365 becomes the default conversation more often?
Yes, it is. More and more often, Windows 365 is becoming the de facto talk of the town. However, having said that, people who are extremely cost sensitive, they still, in their exploration part, would evaluate AVD because of the partner solutions as well. Remember, there are partner solutions which propagate that to ease AVD, use us. That will make your life easy. So you have this AVD costs and R costs. If you use, then you will get the most out of your AVD rather than just alone AVD. Hence, your Windows 365 shines over there. Whatever that extra delta that you get or you have to pay, your holistic cost from a cost comparison standpoint has to be AVD plus that tool is your total costs, versus in Windows 365, it's simple and there's no additional costs from a management standpoint that you need.
Yeah, so I guess the other thing here that I guess that also leads into is it almost gets into something similar to the conversations you'd have if you were proposing a cloud solution, and somebody would just look at, what the cost of that cloud solution was, and then they turn around and say, but if I do it on-prem, the licensing only costs this, but they're forgetting about all of the other costs that aren't licensing, or in this case, that aren't the consumption costs. They're not 100%. Counting the cost of, the 2 or 3 people that have to keep this thing up and running, et cetera, et cetera.
Indeed. And that's exactly what people miss out. And hence that's the places where Windows 365 shines way better, because less Azure complexity as well.
What about, do you ever get people who lean towards Win365 purely around, or I shouldn't say purely, but just the predictability of the pricing, the X dollars per user per month versus how much you use per month? Do you ever find that becomes much of a conversation?
Yes. I know of a customer, for them, the key was they wanted predictable costs per month, per user. And AVD cannot give you a predictable, because it would waver month over month based on the usage, based on every 200 variables that are there in Azure. it would be dependent on that, versus Windows 365 gives you a bang on single cost per month plus the bandwidth if you have plugged it like an enterprise with Azure network connection into your own like a hub and spoke and using express route. That's additional, but in a nutshell, from a compute and all the other standpoint, you have a fixed cost per user per month. And that's what a lot of customers coming from the traditional VDI space who always couldn't give a fixed cost. This removes all those kind of conversations that I have a variable cost, that gives you a nice prediction over the year plus discounts. So it makes the whole conversation quite easy.
Okay, that's good. So that does align pretty well with my view on things. Because, sometimes you're just not sure if the small subset of people you interact with, whether you're in an echo chamber. Actually, we should still be in an echo chamber here, considering how few of us there are. But I guess you'd be talking to a lot more enterprise customers versus, for me, a lot more of it would be, partners working in the SMB space. And even there, there's a lot of different challenges there versus the enterprise side.
Yes. And post the recording stop, I can talk.
No, yeah, okay.
In more details about that.
Let me just stop that now.
Hint, hint.
Done.